Now, I've seen loads of videos where someone unboxes a new motorbike seat, fits it to the bike, has a quick sit down and says, "Wow, this seat feels so good." But come on, that's definitely not what I'd call a review. I've got 3 completely different style of touring seats to review on my Interceptor today. But instead of just standing here in the garage and talking about them as if I'm reviewing office furniture, I'm actually going to fit them onto the bike and test them on the road. I'll be testing them for style, comfort, pillion comfort and quality. And at the end, I'll pick the one I'm actually going to keep on the bike. And if you're wondering why I'm replacing the stock seat, well, let's just say we don't exactly get along. And I'm feeling it, to be honest with you. The inside of my leg, my buttocks. Let's do this. The first seat I'm testing is the Deluxe touring seat. And straight out of the box, the first thing that hits you is the quality. No, it's not real leather, but you'd be forgiven for thinking otherwise. The material looks seriously premium, and the crisp silver stitching adds a proper touch of class. Of the 3 seats I'm reviewing today, this is the newest one from Royal Enfield. I believe it was launched in 2023, and it's been designed with one thing in mind: comfort. It features dual density foam and a 3D net system moulded onto a wider base, which actually increases the sit bone support area by 33% compared to the stock seat. You've also got a neatly embroidered RE logo that ties the whole look together. As I've just mentioned, it uses Royal Enfield's 3D mesh tech system, as do the other seats in this video. I'm not going to bore you with the science behind that. There's plenty of videos for that online. I'm going to tell you how it actually feels when you're out riding. So with that said, let's hit the road and let's see how it performs. Now, before we get into this video, I just want to show you how easy these seats are to fit. Now, I've seen a few videos online and people are struggling fitting them. One of them was either a Royal Enfield technician or a salesperson. It looked like it was over in India, and he could not get the seat on the bike, and the customer was watching. It was pretty cringy. They're dead easy to fit. So underneath the seat, you've got 2 tongs, which fit underneath the fuel tank. And at the back, you have a pin, which goes into the latch on the bike. Now, I'm going to show you this in real time so you don't think I'm lying. This seat has already been on the bike, but when I first took it out of the box and fitted it, it went on just as easy. Now, I've heard some people as well saying that these seats, these rubbers take time to break in. I've never heard that before. I think some people just like to overcomplicate things. So we've got the 2 tabs at the front. They're going underneath the tank, like that. And then the pin at the back, we need to line that up with the latch. Once it's lined up, roughly position your hand where it is, give it a good push down, and we're on. It's that easy. I've definitely spent the most time on this seat compared to the others. In fact, I used it during the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, and after about 4 hours in the saddle, I've got a solid hands-on impression of how it performs over time. When I first reached out to Hitchcock's, this was a seat I really had my eye on. It just looked like the ultimate comfort upgrade. And in theory, it should be the most comfortable genuine Royal Enfield touring seat available for the Interceptor. It's the widest of the bunch, which gives your backside more surface area to rest on. And during the DGR, I can honestly say I didn't have any pain in my ass whatsoever. That part of the design really works. But what I did find, and this became more noticeable as the ride went on, is that I was constantly sliding forwards towards the fuel tank. And let's just say, the family jewels weren't too happy about it. I think the issue is the slope, and the seat material doesn't offer a lot of grip. So every time I braked or de-accelerated, I'd gradually shuffle forwards. It's something to consider if you're planning on longer rides, or if you're a more spirited style of rider. In terms of overall comfort, the seat height and shape also make a noticeable difference. Even though the Deluxe touring seat appears to be slightly taller than the standard seat, the scooped out section at the front really helps. It makes getting your feet down a lot easier, something shorter riders will definitely appreciate. Despite the extra padding and width, I can still move backwards on the bike while keeping both feet flat on the ground, just like I could with the stock seat. I also noticed that the bend in my knees feels almost identical to the original seat, so it doesn't drastically change your riding posture. If I'm being totally honest, I wasn't a massive fan of the style of this seat when I first fitted it to the bike. It just looked a bit too bulky at first glance. But the more time I spent with it, the more it started to grow on me. It has that chunky, retro design that harks back to the classic seats you'd see on bikes from decades past. In fact, it's quite similar to what was fitted on the original Interceptor. It's definitely got that vintage touring vibe. That said, if you're after a sleek, minimalistic look, this probably isn't the seat for you. It's bold, it's big, and it makes a statement. But for some, I guess that might be the appeal. Now, full disclosure, I haven't done a proper pillion test with any of these seats, so don't roast me in the comments. But based on the design alone, I can tell you your passenger is going to be extremely comfortable no matter the distance on this seat. As you can see, the padding is thickest at the rear of this seat and it feels properly plush. Combine that with the fact that it's 33% wider than the standard seat, it's pretty much a throne for your pillion. If you're into your moto camping, this added width also comes in handy when strapping your camping gear on the back. Honestly, you won't find a comfier seat than this for a passenger, at least not from the genuine Royal Enfield accessory catalogue. If your missus is complaining about the stock seat, this one could definitely save your relationship. And here's how I've scored the Deluxe touring seat. I've crowned this seat the Pillion King. The next seat I'm testing is the Premium Touring Dual Seat. This one goes for a more classic look, with ribbed vinyl, clean white piping, and a stitched Royal Enfield logo at the rear that really adds to that premium vintage aesthetic. Now, while it's not quite as well put together as the Deluxe touring seat, the overall quality still holds up. And no, the rib sections aren't individually stitched, but the upside of that is better waterproofing. Less stitching means fewer points for water to sneak in, so in a typical UK downpour, this should hold up better. It also happens to be the tallest seat of the three, sitting over an inch higher than the standard seat, so let's see how it feels on the road. I spent a good hour riding with this seat and right away the added inch or so in height is actually quite noticeable. My knees sat at a more relaxed angle, which made a big difference in overall comfort, especially over time. If you're a taller rider, I definitely recommend giving this one a look. The padding feels slightly softer than the Deluxe touring seat. That said, I did notice the ribbed sections pressing against my backside a bit. It's not uncomfortable exactly, but it's something I could see becoming annoying on a longer ride. What I do like is the flat bench style design. It means you can slide back and forth easily to shift your riding position. This seat is miles ahead of the stock seat in terms of comfort, and honestly, I'd even go as far as to say it edges out the Deluxe touring seat in that department. When it comes to comfort while stationary, the added height of this seat does make a difference. I can still flat foot the bike, which is great, but when I'm trying to move the bike backwards, I do find myself having to go up onto my tiptoes a bit. It's not a massive issue, but it's something to keep in mind, especially if you're on uneven ground or a slope. As you can see here, the bend in the knee is definitely more relaxed compared to the stock seat, like I mentioned earlier. Styling wise, I actually really like the look of this seat. If you're going for a more rugged, scrambler style build on your Interceptor, I think it would fit in nicely. It's got that flat, bench style shape that gives off a proper classic custom vibe. That said, I'm not a huge fan of the white piping. On my bike, the sunset strip, it just stands out a bit too much. There's no other white detailing anywhere else on this bike, so to me, it looks slightly out of place. It might work better on a different colour scheme, maybe the Mark II, or even the Baker Express. Personally, I think black or even red piping would have blended in way better with my setup. As far as pillion comfort goes, this seat does a really solid job. It has that same flick up at the back like the stock seat, which works well to keep your passenger actually on the seat and stops them from sliding off the back under acceleration, which is always a bonus. The padding feels generous and supportive, and while it's not quite as plush as the Deluxe touring seat, it's still really good. And here's how I've scored this one. This seat is a solid all-rounder. The final seat I'm testing is the GT Premium Touring Dual Seat. Yes, this one's actually designed for the Continental GT650. but because the GT and the Interceptor share the same frame, a lot of Interceptor owners fit this one to their bikes. The quality is outstanding. The red stitching and subtle Royal Enfield branding give it just the right amount of style, and when paired with the optional dual seat cowl, it really leans into that cafe racer DNA. The seating area has an Alcantara style look, but it's actually a textured vinyl, which not only looks like a proper custom job, but also provides great grip. Now, just by looking at it, you'd probably assume it's the least comfortable of the three. It's the flattest and the firmest by far, but let's find out what it's really like. I spent about 2 hours riding with this seat, and honestly, it completely took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting it to be this comfortable. It has a slight slope like the Deluxe touring seat, but it's set further back, and thanks to how grippy the material is, not once did I find myself sliding forwards or smashing my testicles into the fuel tank. Even though it's the firmest of the three, that actually works in its favour. A firmer seat is often better on longer distances, and in this case it absolutely is. The smooth seating surface with no ribbing or stitch panels just adds to the comfort. There's nothing digging into you or causing pressure points. And that textured vinyl not only gives it a custom look, but also makes you feel properly planted. You feel connected to the bike, especially when you're throwing it into the twisties. It's easily the most comfortable of the three seats I've tested. I can flat foot the bike even easier than I could on the stock seat, which is always a bonus, especially for shorter riders. Pushing the bike backwards, no problem, still flat footed. Now, my knees do sit at a slightly sharper angle compared to the other two seats, just because this one's a bit lower, but honestly, I'll take that trade-off any day considering how comfortable the seat is overall. The control and confidence at a standstill make it feel like a natural fit, even though it wasn't technically designed for the Interceptor. When I first reached out to Hitchcock's about doing this seat comparison video, I didn't even consider any of the GT seats for my Interceptor. I was totally set in my ways, thinking they were strictly for the Continental GT and wouldn't suit the Interceptor's style at all. But Hitchcock's recommended this one. It's actually one of their best selling seats, and now that I've seen it on the bike, I totally get why. I think it looks absolutely spot on, especially with my sunset strip colour scheme. The red stitching ties in perfectly with the red on the fuel tank, and it gives the whole bike a sleek, stripped back, minimalistic look that I didn't know I wanted. I genuinely think it's the best looking option for me out of all three seats. The only thing I'd probably do is remove the pillion grab rail. It just interrupts the style. To be honest, that's something that I've been thinking about removing off the bike anyway. I think that Royal Enfield could have done a nicer job with this. The welds on the top just look a little bit untidy in my opinion. Unfortunately, when it comes to pillion comfort, this one doesn't exactly shine. To be fair, I don't think Royal Enfield had passengers in mind when they designed this seat. Let's not forget, it was originally made for the Continental GT, which is all about solo, sporty riding. The pillion area slopes off at the back and the sides, which means there's just not much surface area for a backside to sit on. Plus, the rear section doesn't have the same textured vinyl as the rider's area, so it's pretty slippery. And if you were thinking of removing the pillion grab rails for a cleaner look, don't be surprised if your pillion literally slides off the back. If you regularly ride two up, this definitely is not the seat for you. Now I know style is subjective, but I think this seat is the best looking of the bunch. Before I tell you which seat I'd keep if I could only choose one, let me just say this. As you've gathered by now, there's no such thing as the perfect seat for everyone or every situation. You've got to figure out what matters most to you. Are you regularly riding two up and need comfort for a pillion? Are you all about the look and want your bike to stand out at the local meet? Or maybe you're just after something that's a bit more comfortable for your weekend blast to the coffee shop. And don't forget, we're all built differently. What suits my body shape and riding style might not work for you. If you're still on the fence, honestly, my advice is to try before you buy, if you can. Look online for bikes at local dealers that already have one of these seats fitted and go and sit on them in person. Videos like this are helpful, sure, but sometimes they won't give you the answer you were hoping for. I fell into that trap myself. After watching a few videos on the Deluxe touring seat on YouTube, I thought that that would have definitely been the most comfortable seat for the Interceptor. But in reality, spoiler alert, it ended up being my least favourite of the three. So out of the seats I tested today, the one I'd personally keep is the GT Premium Touring Dual Seat. Strangely enough, it turned out to be the most comfortable for me, which I really didn't expect going into this. And the styling, it looks absolutely stunning on the bike. Honestly, this video doesn't even do it justice. It looks even better in person. Now, yes, it's rubbish for pillion comfort, but that's not exactly a deal breaker for me, considering my wife still hasn't been on the back and I've had the bike for over a year now. Which brings me on to something else. These seats are relatively inexpensive, and if you can afford to, why not have a couple of options? Mix things up, keep the bike looking fresh, and switch depending on your plans. If I was going to do some proper two-up riding, the Deluxe Touring seat is absolutely the king in that department. No question. And you know what? If none of these seats I've reviewed today quite match your taste, don't worry, I've counted 18 different seat options on Hitchcock's website, so there's plenty to choose from. I'll leave a link to their site in the description, along with direct links to all the seats featured in this video. I want to hear from you too. Which one of the three would you choose for your Interceptor? Or maybe you've already upgraded your seat. If so, which one did you go for and how's it working out? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video helpful or even just mildly entertaining, do me a favour, give it a thumbs up, it really helps the channel grow. And if you want more Interceptor content, reviews and upgrades, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. Speaking of which, in the next video I will be fitting the USB power output by Hitchcock's and also their handlebar relocators. Until next time, I appreciate you for watching, ride safe, and I'll see you in a bit.